So this is Marty with Marty's Diesel, and today I am going to show you how we do an oil change here at Marty's Diesel. The oil changes typically start by me actually pulling the dipstick. The reason that I pull the dipstick out first is because it allows me to identify if the truck is overfilling the crankcase. That's a common problem on 6 liters and 6.4s. It can also happen, I guess, on 7.3s if they're getting coolant in there, but usually on 6.0s and 6.4s, it is fuel. Now this truck it's not up to temp or anything like that, which is actually how I prefer to change the oil. And in this case, there is not even enough oil to be on the dipstick. Just like in previous videos, that means that this thing is at least 2 quarts low on oil. It could be more, it could be less, who knows. Now, me personally, I prefer to change oil when it's hot because I feel like it is easier, it's quicker, it's faster, and I seem to get more oil out of the truck when it's like that. But what I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna start by removing the filter, okay? Make sure that when you remove the filter, okay, you use the correct tool. Do not use like a pair of channel locks or, you know, like a 12-point socket or anything like that. Make sure you use a 6-point socket that fits the cap properly. Now, the reason that I want to pull this first is because it gives me the opportunity to not only look at this filter and look at the condition of the oil that's in there, but it also allows any of the oil that's up here inside of this bowl to actually drain down into the crankcase of the engine. My goal when I'm doing this oil change is to make sure I get the most amount of oil out of this truck, especially trucks that come in and they're worked hard, okay? If they're worked hard, maybe they're not serviced as often as they should be, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm trying to get as much oil out of this thing as possible. So while that's draining, I'm gonna go ahead and go underneath the truck. All right, and we're back. So what I do is I just take this impact gun, make sure I got it all the way out. I keep holding it tight, it's not gonna leak. And then as soon as I move that out of the way, no problem. A lot of times, I can get this socket to come off, and then I just stick that magnetized drain plug right there and I let it drain as well into here. But I'm actually probably going to replace this because it was kind of rusty. It was a little bit stripped out a little bit, and I also am going to be replacing this copper anyway. So I'm going to go take this over to the workbench and I'm going to take a better look at it once it's clean, and I'm going to make the decision from there. I usually put drain plugs in from Ford because they come with the little magnet and they've got the little 19mm head on them, and I like to use them. There are aftermarket drain plugs that are just like a regular hex that don't have a flange. I'm not really a huge fan of them, but to each their own. In the meantime, we're going to let this drain. GoPro, stop recording. So while we're letting the oil drain underneath, I did get the old plug out of the socket. It's actually not in terrible shape, so I'm probably just going to replace the copper washer. But I'm going to clean it up. I usually check for debris on this thing as well. Nothing crazy is on this little magnetized socket. There's a little bit of ferrous material in there, but nothing I'm really that worried about. Just like with some of the other bolts that I mentioned in some of my other videos, I don't wire wheel this thing. Usually if you wire wheel them, you take off whatever coating's on them, and when you take off that coating, they go from being like maybe a little bit rusty if they're really old to just being absolutely like a terrible piece of rust very, very quickly. So what I like to do next is hop up here, take this filter out. Now, this filter, okay, is going to be 2-piece design, okay? Now I'm gonna do this over top of the trash can just so that I don't make a mess